we're going to make something else with all our basic stitches that we learnt in the last 6 videos. So I'm just going to show you how to put together a little purse. I think this one's actually big enough to put a phone in it. Keep it nice and snug. So it's got a loop to go over a button, which I'll show you how to do. It's got a material lining. So we're going to introduce a bit of sewing as well. I'll just do that up. Now the stitches we're going to use, obviously the cast on, which was in the first video, and the stocking stitch, which was the 1 row knit and the 2nd row purl sequence, and that is in the 3rd video, and the finished off part where you go down in size to make the flap. That's going to be using your decreasing, which you learned in the 6th video. So I'm going to turn the camera around now and we'll get on and I'll show you how to put it together. Right, see you on the other side. Right, here we go. So we've got our knitted shape, a mirroring shape of material, a nice shiny button, some scissors obviously were needed to cut out your mirrored shape of material, and I'll be using them obviously to cut out the thread as I'm going. So you'll also need some pins. Now I like to use the nice bead headed pins in knitwear so that you can see what you're doing. We also, on this nice big pin cushion, got some ready threaded cotton so that I can stitch the lining in, and a darning needle which has got a much bigger eye to stitch up the work at the end and do the loop. So what do we do first? Let's get the other things out of the way. So first thing we do, we have the material facing right side up to you. Then we are going to turn over the piece that we've knitted so that you have right side of knitting on top of right side of material. Now put your long edge, which is your cast on edge. I cast on 25 stitches for this one. Then knit it up as far as I want it to go, because it's up to you. I'm not going to give you measurements. After all, it's your purse, and as big as you want to make it, they are going to be your measurements. When you have got to the required size that you want to have, we're going to start with the decrease stitches. And again, like I did on the description before, in video 6, we decreased only on the knit row. Then when you get to the point where you don't want to decrease anymore, you're probably going to be left with a small amount which you just cast off. Now, you can measure this before you do anything by taking your work, folding it in half up as far as the decrease, and then you can see how far down the flap comes and then cast it off. Okay, so it's quite simple. You can do all those measurements yourself because it's, after all, your purse. Now what we do here is we use the nice glass headed pins to stitch it down to the material. So I like to leave a gap to turn so that, and I show myself where I'm going to start my sewing from and where I'm going to stop the sewing. So I just pop those needles in, those pins in like that, and they keep it out. So that will be my gap for turning the work round on itself, because at the moment what you're looking at obviously is the inside. So we're going to stitch it together. The pins will help us keep it nice where it needs to go. There we are, and just take your time, pinning as you go, using the corners to help you. Right, now you can see why I like to use these glass-headed or bead-headed pins, because they don't get lost in the knitting. The big problem is if you use the other pins that don't have the glass-headed pin tops, you can very easily lose them in your knitting. So I'm just roughly pinning, and then down this side, so that when you're sewing, things don't move about so much. And there we are, last one, all nicely pinned. Oh, and I didn't even pin it to the cloth. That's got to be a fast. Oops, that's the sewing. That's not a pin. And there we are. And in it goes. Now, I like to sew from the knit side. You can use that method where we stitch once. Hold your thumb there, remember it stops it from tangling. Slowly till we get to the end. Then stitch over that same space again. And this helps to anchor your cotton. Give it a slight tug. And then you know it's not going to come out. I'm going to go over it just one more time. And this time I'm going to come up a little bit further on. Now can you see the difference? All right. Hold it all nice in place with your thumb. Pull it taut but not overly tight. Remember, we don't want it gathering up. Now you go back down and come up slightly ahead of where you were before. Now this, for those that don't know, is called a back stitch. There we go, and you shouldn't get any gaps. Now with running stitch you tend to get gaps, but because this is going to be a little purse, what we don't need are little gaps. So you can come back to me later when I've stitched it all the way round, and I shall show you how we turn it out. Okay, see you in a bit. Right, here we are. Now I've stitched all the way round, leaving my gap. Here we go, there it is. Now, and what I'm going to do is turn it all the way out now. So push all the work all the way through that small gap, pulling out the corners, pushing them out with your fingers. That's that. It shouldn't take long. There we are. Now it's still a bit rolly, and because that's what stocking stitch does, it does tend to roll in on itself. But once it's lined and stitched in place, it'll be fine. There we go. All right. Now, I've kept hold of this cotton because I'm going to stitch up the gap now. So hold it in such a way, like this, just a little bit taut. Push the edges in. There we go. Now, if you hold that between your finger and your thumb, your finger and your thumb, and just overstitch gently, taking a little bit from the knitting and a little bit from the material, and just overstitch it. Right, so this shouldn't take very long. You don't take huge stitches, just a little bit. Work your way up the hole until you finish it off. There we go. Just little stitches, moving it up. Oop. There we are. A little bit further. Oh, still half the hole left. So between your thumb and finger, it's not going anywhere. If it starts to poke through, just use your needle like that, so that you've got a folded edge that you're working with all the time. There we go. A little bit further on. Gosh, it's a bigger hole than I thought I'd left. There we are. Just keep going. Right, and you can see this is where it finishes. So we're going to do to there. And again, when we get to this point, I'm going to secure it off. Right, just do an extra stitch. And when we get a little loop left, take the needle through the loop and secure it off. Now, we don't just want to cut that and have the end sticking out. So I'm just going to gently poke it through and hide it inside. Bring it out about an inch or so into the material. You can take your scissors, now being very careful not to snip the lining. And then it should disappear inside. There we go. So now we have our piece of knitting lined. Try and keep pushing it out. Now you can see where the points are, where you started your decrease on your knitting. So taking the bottom corners up to those points, that's going to form your purse. That's it. So poke the lining in. What we want to see is just the knitted edge at this point. So you're going to take those bead topped pins again and just pin it in place. So one in there and one further down, and on the other side pop the loop, just make sure you've got the corner to corner, make sure the lining is just inside the knitted edge. Pin it so we know what we're doing. There we go. Gosh, that's a long pin, that one. Have to be careful you don't stick yourself with these pins. Now, you can see how it's starting to form. So if you flap that over, you see that's going to be the size of your purse. So we get that bit out of the way for now, and I'm going to take the needle that I already had threaded with the wool, and I'm going to secure from almost the inside edge, and very slowly so you don't lose that tail, and then secure it over again, hold it down. Let's do another one so it doesn't move. There we go. I can move that pin now, I don't need that one. And I want you to take a piece from each edge, that one, and hold that bit down there, and that one. And just over sew the edge. Don't leave big gaps. Remember, it's a purse, we don't want things to fall out. And a piece from that edge, and a piece from this edge. Try and be as neat as you can, although with it being the same colour wool you should be okay. It should hide itself amongst the stitches. That's it, each side. All the way. Right, so I'll carry on stitching this, and when you come back to me I'll have done both sides, and then I shall show you how to do the loop for your button. Okay, so I've stitched up both sides, hidden the edges, just taking little bits and clipping them. Now then, what we're going to do now is make the loop. So I've secured the yarn at one edge of the cast off side, and I'm going to go into the other edge. So Let me pull it all the way. Leave your finger there, that'll help. That leaves you a bit of a loop. It's probably a bit too big. There we go. And we wanted to go over the button, don't we? So we could sort of test it now. So we're going to go in there. Hopefully. There we are. Looks like it will. So we've done it once. And I'm going to secure it. I'm going to put my finger in the loop so it doesn't go smaller. There we are. And then over to the other side again. So now we've got 2 loops. Try and make them the same. Okay, hold them together, they'll be fine. And I'm going to secure it again. This is also, it stops them, it doesn't move, it stops it from moving. There we go. Over again to the other side. And then I will have 3 loops, all the same. Right, let's hold them nicely and secure that last one. Put your needle through the loop. See what I'm doing? It's twisted. Right, so we've now got 3 strands making a nice loop. What I'm going to do for the easiest way to do this is to take your yarn round and round those loops, because we're trying to make those loops all stay together and strong. Now, if you're only new to knitting and not new to sewing, and you know how to do a blanket stitch, then do a blanket stitch around these loops. It just makes it nice and tidy. And keep going round and round till you get to the other side. That's it. A few more. Almost there. Let's see how it's looking. Can you see how it's wrapped now? I just do a couple more. And another one. There we are. Right. And what I'm going to do is secure it off at this edge. Needle through the loop. And there we've got a nice loop to go over our button. Let's just check it, the button goes in again. Yes. Fine. So, now we need to get rid of the edge, so lose a bit of the wool where it's not going to be seen, and very carefully snip it. Now be very careful at this point not to snip your knitting. There we are. Now we need to secure the button on, and I think I need a little bit more yarn. So, oops. That might be the longest bit, so I'll have to rethread it now. And needle. See what I'm doing. Thread over the needle, and then eye to the yarn and give it a wiggle. Yeah, keep pushing, it will come through. There we are. That's why I keep my nails a certain length, so I can grab that cotton or the wool. Now, where do we put the button? Well, we loop the top over like this and think, oh, that button is going to go right in there. So I'm going to keep my nail there, and now I know I can secure the yarn on this bit. There we are. And small tail, we don't want to lose it. Yeah. And then we're going to pop the button on. So I want the button to go this way. So let's see which way round. Ah, right. So it means that the shank part of the button, this loop here, has to go a certain way to give me the line pattern going down that way. So I'm going to go back in and out again and bring the button up. Right, can you see how it's in place now? And I've got the line going down a certain way. I'm going to go back into the shank and down and out again and down again. You're going to do this a few times until that button is nice and secure, and then do one of our lovely securing loops. Oh, the tail's got in the way now. Pull it through. Just do that again. Securing loop. Where's it gone? Nearly lost it. And hide the tail end in the work. Now I'm going between the lining and the knitting, not going all the way through with the bit that we want to lose. And then very close, but not cutting the knitting. Snip away the tail end. There we go, so the button is on. And we're going to pop the loop over. And there you have it. A nice little purse. Might go inside this one. There we go. 2 purses. You could have one for your change and one for your folding. Or one for your phone and one for your headphones. It's up to you. Have fun. Right, so there you go. Simple really, wasn't it? So something else you can keep now and say, I made that. So you had your cushion last time and your little purse this time. Now, in the next video, we're going to be doing a pointy-ended tasselled scarf. Sounds good. I just didn't want to do a boring scarf, but I'll show you how to do it. So catch me next time too. So all it remains for me to say now is please like, share and subscribe to this video channel, and I will be very grateful. All right, take care. Catch you next time. Bye.